Hey everyone, what's going on? It's been a while since I made a video. I know some of you guys that are viewers of the channel have probably been wondering where I'm at. Some of you guys even thought I might be dead. I assure you I'm alive and well. Just been really busy outside of YouTube, with work and doing other stuff. Also, Dark Souls 2 is on the horizon, and Dark Souls 1 is kind of at the end of its life cycle. So I really just haven't felt like making any videos. I kind of felt like I've done almost everything I wanted to do with the game. And I kind of want to end my channel on a good note and prepare for Dark Souls 2. Having said that, though, I've been bored off and on. I come back to the game here and there. And I decided to go ahead and go through the game with a challenge run I've been thinking about. I actually came up with it quite a while ago. I just never got around to doing it. I call it New Game Plus 7 Fresh Start. And basically what it is a run through the game in New Game Plus 7 difficulty, except you start the game with only what you would start a regular new game with. And that means basically nothing. Nothing that you normally bring over from new game actually carries over. As you can see, I'm picking up the weapon for the very first time. I have only what I would normally have. None of my bonfires are kindled or anything like that. I'm speeding up a few things here because we've all seen the beginning. But I wanted to make sure that you guys understood how difficult this actually would be. I'm going to slow it back down here pretty quick, and you're going to see how much effort it actually takes to even kill the lowest enemies. But anyway, as I was saying, I've contemplated this for a while. I brought it up on a couple message boards, probably around the time that Prepare to Die Edition came out. I just never have got around to doing it. It's kind of a hassle to do it if you're playing on a console, because basically you have to go through the game 7 times. And at the very end of it, you need to delete everything you have, including souls and all that. Because if you start New Game Plus 7 with anything, you're basically already breaking the rules of the challenge. Because I play this on PC, I found a very simple workaround. So players that are on the PC, you could probably do what I'm doing relatively easily. And what I did is basically loaded up Cheat Engine, which lets you make some changes to the code of the game. And I basically just turned this into New Game Plus 7 from the start. So basically I just started a new game, and then I turned on Cheat Engine and set the New Game Plus value to 7, and then I'm just running through as you're seeing. Some of you may be questioning whether or not this is truly New Game Plus 7, and I assure you that it is. You can tell not only by the amount of hit points that these guys have, but you'll also be able to tell by the amount of souls I get from defeating some of the bosses. In fact, if you really want to know for sure, count the souls that I get from defeating the Asylum Demon. Go watch any New Game Plus 7 video out there, and you'll see that they match. But anyway, I have to say up front that I probably cannot commit to doing an entire playthrough. Some of you viewers are probably already getting excited, thinking it's going to be a full one. I've just been really busy lately, and I don't have that kind of time to commit, because this would be kind of a long playthrough. What I wanted to do, though, was throw this out there to give people who are looking for something to kind of like their final coup de grace playthrough of Dark Souls. Something that they can kind of be proud of and understand that it truly is one of the hardest things you can do. And that's kind of what my goal is here. Anybody can come up with a challenge run, but coming up with a good challenge run that's still kind of fun and doesn't cross over to the tedium line and stays kind of in the fun line. And that's what I'm striving to do here. By starting out in New Game Plus 7 with only what I have in New Game, you really don't have to limit yourself too much. You don't have to be like, no shield, no upgrades, play blindfolded with your feet, whatever ridiculous kind of gimmicky thing people tend to come up with. You pretty much can just play to your heart's content as long as you stay at SL1. As I said, I didn't give myself the Master Key because I believe the Master Key kind of mitigates a lot of difficulty, and you're kind of cheating yourself out of the challenge if you allow it. But other than that, you're pretty much free to do what you want. This is one of those challenges, if you want to add more to it, you can. Like, I probably won't summon any help for any of the boss fights. I personally will probably not try to upgrade my weapons to the max from the beginning. I'll probably try to fight a few of the beginning bosses with something less than a full-powered weapon. And the reason is, some of you guys have probably heard me talk about it before in my other videos. I really think that a lot of the difficulty in New Game Plus and beyond gets mitigated just by the fact that you begin the game with everything. You start out with full-powered gear. So it's always been my belief that New Game Plus and beyond is always easier in the first half of the game. The fact that you start out with probably a fully upgraded weapon, shield, and armor You probably have a fully upgraded pyro glove. So the first half of the game is kind of a pushover. In fact, I would go so far to say is New Game Plus, the first half, is probably easier than the first half of New Game because you don't have to spend any time running around upgrading things. You pretty much, most people's New Game Plus evolves into a speed run until you get probably to Anne Orlando and it starts to toughen up again. But this challenge doesn't allow that. The biggest thing you have to do in the beginning is you go around and upgrade all your stuff. And the fact that you don't get the master key makes it a little bit harder. The real key area in order to get everything early would be Valley of Drakes. And that's something that with a master key you can access about a minute from the time that you enter Firelink, simply by going down the elevator into New Londo, opening up that gate, and just you're basically in the Valley of Drakes, which leads to Blighttown, Darkroot Basin, etc. So by not allowing the master key, it's a little bit harder to get there. It's still possible, but it does add difficulty, which is obviously what I'm going for here. There are two ways to do it. One of those ways is simply by fighting through Undead Burg, taking on the Taurus, and then making your way to Andre. And from Andre, you can obviously run down into the Darkroot Basin and take that cave that leads to Valley of Drakes. The other way is going through New Londo, and that is exactly what I'm going to do. Now, in New Game, that's extremely easy if you have a bow, because you can run past the ghosts, stand on the stairway, and take out Ingwer with a bow without even having to aggro the ghost inside the house. However, on New Game Plus 7, it's not quite that easy. Reason being, Ingwer has a ton of hit points, and the trick is to aggro him within the first 4 or 5 shots, because if you don't, you knock him too far away, and you can't continue hitting him with a bow. But because he has so many hit points in New Game Plus 7, it's not easy to do, and on top of that, a Pyromancer does not have the ability to use a bow. You can use it, but you won't do any damage with it. So I had to come up with a method, which I did, that allowed me to still take him out from the stairs without using a bow. And I did do that, and I will be showing you that shortly. But saying that, that's kind of one of the things I like about challenge runs. A lot of us, make challenge runs based off artificial difficulty. Basically meaning we simply limit ourselves so much that things take a lot more time to kill, and we can take a lot more damage. But I like challenges where there's more to it than that, where you can actually, add difficulty by making yourself go through areas differently. Taking away the master key is one of those ways. Forcing yourself to kill bosses in a strange order that you're not used to. And that'll kind of lead me into the whole talk about challenge runs. To understand challenge runs, you really have to understand the difficulty of Dark Souls and kind of what makes it hard. Why do we do challenge runs in the first place? I think some of us do it to get better at the game. In fact, that's exactly why I started doing them. Some of us do it because we want to, have a little bit of a bragging rights, which is another reason to do it, and there's nothing wrong with that. But a lot of us, I think, do it because we enjoy Dark Souls so much, but after playing it for a couple of 100 hours, it just becomes too easy. So you have to start limiting yourself and creating disadvantages so that the game stays kind of challenging for us. So a lot of people, what they do is they simply limit themselves by, no leveling up. You can't use elemental weapons, or you have to use a calamity ring, all stuff that I've done before. Another popular one is not using a shield, etc., etc. And this is all great, but there's a whole another level of difficulty that people forget about. And that's because they get into so much of a habit of how they play the game that they don't even think about, taking things away from themselves that would actually increase true difficulty. So one of those things, like I said, is the master key. The other thing is forcing yourself to go into areas in a different order than you normally would. A lot of people, even people that have played for hundreds of hours, get so used to getting the master key that they forget what it's like to run through the depths or go through Blighttown backwards or take on Sif early. Or some people do take on Sif early because they know how to get really powerful weapons. So there's so many things you can do. And I think this is the key to what makes a really good challenge run, is not just the artificial difficulty. It's also changing the rule set to where you're kind of taken out of your comfort zone. So what's artificial difficulty? It's probably a buzzword you guys have all heard. I think there are different definitions for it. I think the simplest way to say it is anything that the developers do to add difficulty without actually adding, better AI. It usually means adding more hit points to the boss, so it takes longer to kill him. Usually means making the boss do more damage, so it's easier to kill you. Another thing would be like really cheap boss AI, or situations that they put you in where there's really no escape no matter what you do. Or situations where it involves actually luck, meaning if you're just not lucky enough, you're not going to get past it no matter what your skill level is. Things like this would be bad. I think Dark Souls handles most of this really well. I think Bed of Chaos is the only boss I'd probably have an issue with. But even Bed of Chaos can be defeated legitimately once you kind of understand the patterns. So having said all that, I don't really think I'm knocking artificial difficulty all that much, because I think it is a necessity. AI is only so good, no matter what. If you go to the illogical extreme of what we just talked about, all difficulty in a one-player game is basically artificial. Because at the end of the day, the enemy in front of you is basically just digital information, and it's programmed to react in only a limited set of ways. Unless you have another person as your enemy, basically it's just you against the computer. And like I said, there are limits. I think in the future we'll see quite a bit of an improvement. But I think Dark Souls does pretty well for the most part. Yes, there are ways around almost everything once you learn the patterns, but I think that's going to be true in almost any game. So as I was saying, if you want to increase the difficulty of the game, you can't simply focus on artificial difficulty. You have to change other things up. I wish that there was more randomness in Dark Souls. I wish that sometimes the enemies would spawn differently, or some of the item locations would change. I think it would be really awesome if the embers were located in different places. But I really just don't think this fits in with the way that Dark Souls has been envisioned. But one of the problems I said that I had with New Game Plus is that all the difficulty that it adds is all artificial. And what makes it even worse is that you get to start out with so much gear that you're pretty much combating most of that artificial difficulty from the start. So this is the entire point of this playthrough, is to get rid of that advantage and start out fresh. And I think as you guys have been watching me, I just died recently, it definitely makes the game a little bit more difficult. Well, obviously there's going to be a point where I actually get all the weapons that I need, and then it's going to become nothing different than a normal New Game Plus 7 Soul Level 1 run. But the amount of time and effort it's going to take to get to that point is dramatically increased. Another thing that people do that mitigates difficulty is simply running by enemies. And I think we all kind of do it once we get used to the game. You kind of realize that there's a big risk versus reward ratio, and running by enemies is really huge in the reward part and a little bit in the risk. Especially in new game where things don't necessarily one-shot you, so you can manage to take a few hits if you your suicide run kind of goes bad. The good thing about even running through stuff right now is that most things can kill me in one hit. You saw me die earlier, so there is quite a bit of risk along with the reward. And the other thing is, I probably wouldn't be able to fight all these skeletons normally because they have so many hit points and I'm doing so little damage because I don't have any upgrades yet, that I really don't have much of a choice. You see that I'm working my way towards Vamos right now. It's because without the Master Key, I would have either had to make it through the Taurus Demon, which wouldn't have been that difficult because he's still an easy boss, even in New Game Plus 7. I could have used Gold Pine Resin and kind of wore him down over time. But I wanted to force myself to go this way because going through the Catacombs in New Game Plus 7 with no upgrades to your gear is no joke. So you see I finally make it. However, there's a few things still alive, and after that long of a struggle, I decided to quit out and fire it back up, which kind of reset all of the aggro I had. This is another way of kind of mitigating difficulty. So I guess it was kind of cheap in a way to do that. But considering how much effort it took me to get down there, I didn't feel too guilty doing it. So basically right now all I'm doing is just kind of getting some basic upgrades. You see me upgrading the light crossbow, which you actually saw me get earlier, and there is definitely a reason for this, which you'll see here shortly. I bought the reinforced club, one of the other really solid weapons for a SL1 run. You see almost everyone uses them. It has bleed. It probably has the highest AR of all those weapons that you can use at level 1. What I should have done here, which I didn't do, because I kind of ran out of souls, is upgraded that reinforced club to fire. But I was really more important to me to upgrade the crossbow to do what I need to do next. And you'll see why again shortly. So going back to what I said a little bit earlier, this would kind of be a pain to do on a console because, like I said, you'd have to play the game legitimately 7 times. Then at the end of the game, after beating Gwyn before you walk through the fog or light the bonfire, you'd have to basically delete everything. You'd have to drop everything on you. You couldn't keep any souls. You'd have to get rid of everything. And so it would be kind of a pain. But if you have the PC version, there's a very simple way to do this. So I think this challenge is a little bit skewed for PC players. But it wouldn't be impossible. A lot of people have always asked me why have I never done New Game Plus challenge runs on my channel. And a lot of the reason is because I've never been a fan of New Game Plus, not only because of the type of difficulty, but because the hardest part for me is playing through the game that many times with the same character. It gets really boring for me. I always like, starting out fresh and trying something different. So like right now, going through the game 7 times with this exact character would just be torture for me. But the other thing is I've always really focused on entertainment on my videos. Not to say that I've always been successful, but I really want to make it entertaining for people to watch. SL1 runs tend to be somewhat boring in my eyes, and I know that that's just my opinion, but I mean, SL1 ones are probably the #1 video on YouTube for playthroughs because it's kind of the de facto standard for challenge runs. Even though I've already talked about this before, I really don't consider SL1 runs the end all be it of challenges. I think there are other classes that are actually tougher to run through. A lot of new players probably don't know this, but the Pyromancer is definitely by far not the weakest class to play. Even though they're soul level 1, they actually have more starting points than some of the other classes. They also start with 2 attunement slots, 12 strength. They have pretty mediocre, above average, I should say, endurance and vitality. And the fact that they start with a Pyro Glove is a huge thing. So what you're seeing me do now is kind of a trick to where you use the bow to align yourself so that you can fire with the crossbow. However, it's a little tricky here because you'll notice my first shot is higher than my next shot. It's because the camera, when I'm coming out of the aiming screen, actually kind of lowers itself because of where I'm standing on the stairs. So you'll notice I finally got him aggroed, and this was the tough part. Had I hit him a few times and not aggroed him, he would have been too far away to actually continue hitting. So I had to do enough damage in the first 5 shots to piss him off to where he kept running at me. And then once he did, it was just a matter of getting lined up like I am now. And you're going to see just by the numbers how much damage it's actually taken to kill this guy. Had I not upgraded my crossbow, I could not have done this. And I know I said I didn't use the bow. I kind of used it to aim, but I didn't actually do any damage with it. It probably took me like 2 minutes in total. I really sped that up because it would have been extremely boring to watch. But I finally took him out. And so basically, I'm just running through the rest of New Londo. I've probably done this 2 or 3 times on my playthroughs. It's kind of my favorite way to do it. I'm getting really good at it. In fact, I don't think I ended up taking a hit the entire time. But the trick, as I said, to doing this is once you open up the floodgates, you actually gain access to the Valley of Drakes. And once you do that, you basically just bypass the entire need to have the Master Key. The only other thing that the Master Key really does for you that you can't do normally is gain access to the tower where Havel's at. And to do that, you actually have to defeat the Moonlight Butterfly so that you can get that key. But everything else, pretty much you can get without the Master Key. You know I'm going up here, obviously, to get the red Tearstone ring. It sort of becomes a necessity for me this early on. If I started the game with, my standard +10 fire weapon, +5 chaos, or +5 lightning, I probably could get away without needing the red Tearstone ring. But because it's going to take some time before I get a weapon that does that much damage, I pretty much have to use the red Tearstone ring, or basically I can get power within, which requires me to get to Blighttown. And obviously I do have access to Blighttown right now. If I ran to Blighttown at the very beginning, I could have gotten the key to New Londo that opens up that little gate, and now I have access back to Firelink Shrine. I will do that later, but right now I'm more interested in running up to Andre so that I can upgrade my reinforced club. So at this point, the only thing I knew I wanted to do was upgrade my reinforced club to +5, but I hadn't decided where to go from there. The choices I was thinking about was trying to find a way to upgrade my weapon even more in order to make the next few boss fights easier, or should I just keep a +5 and really make it hard on myself to fight the first couple bosses? But first, I knew that I wanted to fight the Black Knight, just to reiterate to you guys how much damage is required to take out a new game +7 enemy. And when you don't have an upgraded weapon, it's just extremely difficult. So you can tell by how little his bar is moving, how many backstabs and repos it would actually take to kill this dude. Had I started, like I said, with a +10 fire weapon, a Hornet Ring, you know, I could have had Power Within going, and I probably could have taken him out in 3 riposts. But because I don't have any of that, it just makes it a longer fight and more chance for me to make an error. At some point here, I'm going to pretty much give up on just taking him down, as it would take forever, and it would be extremely boring to watch. I decided just to go ahead and try to make him fall off. But option-wise, right now I could go down to Blighttown. I could farm some of the slugs for some green shards, and I could have went and upgraded my weapon to at least +5 fire. The other option I could do, which a lot of people forget about, is I could take out some of these blue golems over here, the crystal golems, and they drop blue chunks. So with the green Titanite shards that you can get from Blighttown, you can actually make a +5 magic weapon through Rickert. And then if you go into the Darkroot Garden, which requires no bosses to get to, you can also get the Enchanted Ember, and then you can take out some of the blue golems and get blue chunks, which allows you to make a +5 enchanted weapon, which to my knowledge is probably the most damaging weapon you can make without actually taking out bosses. Unfortunately, it's not the greatest weapon in the end, so I didn't end up doing it. But for those wondering, just out of curiosity, what's the best weapon you can make without taking out a boss? That's your answer. You have access to the very large Ember that you can get from New Londo, which I could have already gotten had I really wanted to. But without killing the Capra, gaining access to the depths, and getting the large Ember, it doesn't really do you any good. Keep in mind, however, that I'm only talking about the SL1 playthrough weapons. Obviously, if you have a Twinkling Titanite weapon like a Black Knight Halberd or a Black Knight sword, the Astora Straight Sword, the Titanite Catchpole, any of those weapons that are available without taking out a boss, you can fully upgrade to +5 with Twinkling Titanite because there are so many Crystal Lizards available to you early in the game that aren't located beyond a boss. I've already taken out one. There's one up near the Taurus Demon. There's some in the Catacombs you can take out. And more importantly, if you can get to Blighttown, which I've already opened up, you can actually go into Great Hollow and get all that you need. So there are a couple of Twinkling Titanite weapons that you can use at SL1. One of them being the Giant Blacksmith Hammer, which is actually a pretty good weapon overall. But you have to wait till Anor Londo to get that. The only one I can think of off the top of my head that you can use without taking out any bosses would be the Ghost Blade from the New Londo Ghosts. A lot of people don't even realize how good of a weapon that is. It's not the best, but it's actually a pretty decent weapon. It's really fast, it has a curved sword moveset, and it does bleed damage, which is the biggest factor that it has going for it. Bleed damage is great on low level runs because any of the bosses that you can bleed out, you can bleed them really quick with that weapon. I didn't go ahead and get it yet, but I might consider getting it later. At this point, I really hadn't decided exactly what boss I want to take out first, so I quit out. And then I decided that the Gargoyles would probably be my first boss. Because I only have a +5 weapon, I figured the only real boss I could take out at this level, with at least not being too difficult, would be the Gargoyles or the Taurus. And the Taurus is kind of boring. I figured the Gargoyles would be a nice fight to watch because you basically have 30 seconds or so to take out the first one before the second one shows up. And if you're fighting them both at the same time, it becomes quite a hell of a fight. The reason I think a lot of people think the Gargoyles end up being easy is because if you're only fighting one at a time, they are extremely easy. But when you have two on screen at the same time, and you know that so much as one hit is going to kill you, it really ramps up the difficulty. So at this point, this is going to pretty much be the finale of the first video. I say first video loosely because I'm not sure how far I'm going to go with this. Again, the major point was to offer up a playthrough for other people that are interested in doing it. I probably will finish the game, but I may not do it all on video. However, if there's enough interest, I might do at least 1 or 2 more videos and kind of come up with a logical conclusion to what would be the end. Gwyn is not a logical conclusion because Gwyn is not a hard fight. Regardless if you parry him or not, he's only a single boss, and so it's just like a battle of attrition. As long as you can continue dodging long enough to take him out, you will eventually win. So if I was to go fight like one boss to be like the end of the playthrough, what would you guys like to see? The only two bosses off the top of my head that I can really think of that would be difficult for me would be ONS or Four Kings, and both of them because there's multiple combatants. Any of the single bosses I really don't think would be all that hard, because I would have a fully upgraded weapon. It would just be a matter of me dodging long enough. I know some of you guys are probably thinking Artorias, but Artorias isn't really that difficult for me. Any of you guys that have watched my Assassin's Run playthrough have already seen me fight him for upwards of 3 minutes without taking a hit. So even if I have to fight him for 5 or 6 minutes, I still think it would not be that hard. So anyway, it's up to you guys. If enough people find this interesting and would like to see me go for 1 or 2 more videos until I make it to whatever boss is chosen, I might consider it. Otherwise, just take this as an inspiration for those of you that really want to make Dark Souls hard again. If you guys are looking for one final challenge playthrough before Dark Souls 2 comes out, you might want to consider this. At any rate, if you guys are watching me, I'm running back and forth, kind of dodging these guys because obviously there's a ton of hit points on these ones. And with +5 maximum weapon, and I don't even have pine resin, it's taking quite a bit to wear them down. I think I got the first one to about 50% hit points before the other one showed up. So I was able to wear him down, but I wasn't able to take as much as I would hoped I could have taken off. Thankfully, the crossbow is coming in pretty handy. It's doing a fairly decent chunk with the heavy bolts and the red tearstone ring. Without red tearstone, this would have been just pure hell. And it's hard enough as you're seeing. So like I was mentioning earlier, there's often a fine line between tedium and fun. Now for me playing through, this was actually pretty entertaining for me. I actually had a lot of fun with this fight because I really wasn't sure how hard it was going to be and if I was actually going to be able to pull it off. But for you guys watching, it's a little bit different. This ends up being kind of a long fight, so I don't know if the average person enjoys watching a boss fight that takes like 3 to 4 minutes long. But this is the reason that you don't see me make a lot of videos with like ridiculous challenges like this. Because if it's not that entertaining for viewers, to me it's almost pointless to make the video. But I almost got one down here. Obviously once I get the first one down, the second one's going to be a piece of cake. As you can see, I'm kind of running low on bolts. I didn't really plan for this quite that well. I had considered using my pyro glove and using my fireballs, but the wind up on the fireball actually takes longer than even firing the slow ass crossbow. But with one down, it's just a matter of getting the second one down. Even the +5 club does pretty good against them. And as you're seeing, 2 hits will stun them. And you can keep them infinitely stunned if you have enough stamina. He's almost gone. One more hit. And finally he's down. I think other than Taurus Demon, this is probably the only boss that would be crazy enough to fight with just a +5 weapon in New Game +7. So for anyone who may still have doubts, this is truly New Game +7. Just take a look at the souls I'm getting for the gargoyles, and that should kill any doubt. Which is another good thing about New Game +7. Even though I'm starting out with no good items or anything, I don't have to worry about farming to upgrade anything. I have to farm for the chunks or whatever, but I don't have to worry about getting souls. As long as I don't lose my bloodstain, I'll have plenty of souls to do whatever I want. So this is pretty much going to wrap up the last part of the video. New Game +7 fresh start. Any of you hardcore Dark Souls players that are looking for a challenge that doesn't rely on a bunch of gimmicks, this might be right up your alley. So until next time guys, take it easy.